everyone. This is Fruitcake Tony. We are live. Welcome to Show Me Your Pick. It's August the 29th, 2020, 4:05 Eastern Time in the afternoon. Hope everyone's weekend is going well. We're going to be talking about the Eagles today. Got a lot of Eagles stuff to show you. Steve's got some stories about the Eagles. Got a guitar pick, a Glenn Frey Eagles guitar pick we're going to give away later in the show. We'll show you that here shortly. So without further ado, let's bring in the man himself, ladies and gentlemen, the legendary rock journalist, the one and only Steve Rosen. There he is.
Hey, Tony.
Steve, how you doing?
I'm good, Tony. How you been?
Doing well. My little clappers broke. So
no applause. Thank you.
Nice to have you, Steve. Always
Thanks, buddy.
A pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thanks.
All righty. How's your week been?
Very interesting week. Monday was my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks very much. And the previous Saturday was a little get-together of pick collectors. There was a gathering down at John Elliott's house. John Elliott is one of the premier guitar pick collectors in the world. I mean, his collection is pretty staggering.
Yeah.
I mean, at one time he had every Stones pick, which is a pretty big feat. There's a Stones pick, there's a Keith Richards pick with just a question mark on it. That is, I mean, exceedingly rare, and he had that,
right.
in his collection at one time. But so I was able to meet some guys that I'd only dealt with through email. Chris Bellow, guy who lives down south from me, finally met Chris, who's a very good guy. Brian Bouchard, who is currently working on a kind of a follow-up to his first guitar pick book. And the book, I saw some roughs of it there. It's going to be really spectacular. Photos and years of picks. I mean, there's nothing else like it out there. So it was fun meeting those guys and hanging out, and sharing pick stories and that kind of thing. Brandon Mullally was there, who's a character. I mean, Brandon's thing is, finding all the fakes and the guys scamming picks. And so that was cool. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. And man, it was fun. It was fun. It was a good week.
Let's see who we got on board here today, Steve. We got Clive 54, Dwight Bailey, Lenny Lou, Bent Tom, our lovely moderator and co-producer Sandra is hanging out. And there'll be more jumping in. As we go along. So let's give everybody a peek at the guitar pick that we're going to be giving away today. Steve. So
cool,
this is a 2001 Glenn Frey. We'll have a question later on in the show based on Eagles history. So you guys that know the Eagles, get ready. There's the guitar hack in here. How you doing, sir? Mike Neese is with us also. Mike sent me a Eagles guitar pick picture, Steve, of one that he bought in your store, and I'm going to show that.
Oh, no kidding.
After a while, yeah.
Mike, you need to introduce yourself to me. You know, if you want anything from the store, man, just give me a shout personally. I'll take care of you. Any of you guys, if you ever need any picks or whatever, just contact me directly. And thank you, everybody, for your birthday wishes. I appreciate that.
So Steve sells guitar picks on eBay, and
I'm sorry, Tony. I actually just started also selling them on Reverb. If any of you guys are hip to Reverb, Reverb's a little bit more of a where you buy gear, you know, drum sets and guitars. And I think I'm actually one of the few people selling guitar picks on Reverb. But yeah,
oh, cool. So I'll have to include that link from here on out. Steve's eBay link is in the chat somewhere, and it is under the title down in the description. Steve's got a lot of stuff in his store, and if you shop prices of these same guitar picks, Steve's got great prices too. Yeah, go check his store out.
Cool. Tony, let me interrupt for 1 second. Oh, I remember, Mike, of course. The Andy Timmons pick. Talk about one of the world's great guitar players. Oh, my God. What a guitar player he is. Wow. Cool, man.
Let's see. Mr. Ben Coombs is in the house.
Hey,
nice
Ben.
to see you, Ben.
Yeah. So who is Lenny Lou? She's been here for the last couple of weeks. Hi, Lenny.
Lenny Lou is a guitar player that lives in the Northeast, I want to say, and is very active in the YouTube guitar community.
Oh, really?
Very nice lady. Absolutely, everybody loves Lenny Lou and her mom, Mary. Yeah. Yeah. Nice to have you, Lenny Lou. So, Steve, the Eagles. When did the
High-flying Eagles?
When did they appear on your radar screen just first as a music fan?
I've got a real interesting story about that. This must be, man, I want to say 73, 74. The Eagles opened for King Crimson at the Santa Monica Civic. Whoever, put that bill together was, out of his skull. I mean, the Eagles opening for King Crimson, I don't get it. Those are the kinds of shows that, Bill Graham would have back in the day. You'd go to the Fillmore and you'd see the Allman Brothers opening for Pink Floyd, opening for, Mountain. Back then it kind of made sense. But for somebody to team up the Eagles with Crimson was just ridiculous. That being said, I was not an Eagles fan whatsoever. So I was there with my brother, and we were both there to see Crimson. And I mean, the Eagles just bored me to death. I mean, I just, that kind of that California hippie, thing. I just, they just never did it for me. And in the pursuit of full honesty, I've never been a big Eagles fan, which isn't to say I don't recognize the talent there and the songwriting and the arrangements and the vocals. I mean, that stuff was pretty spectacular. And Hotel California. I mean, they had remarkable songs, but for the most part, I never really dug them at all. So I saw the show, and I was reviewing. I think it was for the Hollywood Reporter, which was, I think it was a daily. It was mainly like for more business type people. Maybe it was a weekly. Um, so somehow I was doing reviews on them. I knew the girl who was the editor over there. So I wrote a review of the show, and I slammed the Eagles. I mean, I said they were the worst band I'd ever heard. And what are they doing on the same stage with King Crimson? And they're a bunch of cowboys. And, God save me. And I remember, I think it was the next day, receiving a phone call from Irving Azoff's management company. It may have been Irving Azoff himself. I honestly can't remember. Hard to believe that Irving would have called me himself, but it was a pretty menacing phone call. Like, who the fuck are you to write a review like this about the Eagles? I don't think they use that language, but that was certainly my interpretation. And, you need to be careful about what you say and this and that. And, I mean, they were pretty angry. And again, to be honest, they were kind of justified. I went way over the top in slamming the Eagles. I mean, I think most of my venom came from just not being an Eagles fan. I mean, the truth of it is, I'm sure they played really well, and I'm sure everybody else in the audience loved them. I just didn't. So I kind of took out my wrath on the Eagles. When I was first starting my career, I used to do that. It would be kind of hyperbolic journalism. So if a band wasn't very good, they were bad. And if they were bad, they were terrible. And if they were terrible, they were the worst band who ever picked up a guitar. So, I think it was, trying to create a name for myself and thinking, well, if I wrote stuff like that, people are going to read it and, either hate me or, watch for my next byline. I don't know why I did it. When I think about that now, I cringe because no band deserves that. And certainly not the Eagles. So anyway, that was my first, confrontation with the Eagles, as it were. Yeah.
As the Eagles, as the years went and they gained popularity, did your opinion change, Steve?
That's a good question. I mean, it certainly it did. I mean, again, I recognized the artistry there, and what they did was pretty unique. The whole image they had, their vision of what they did, the sound of their records, their guitar playing, it was a unique thing. And they'd subsequently go on to be one of the biggest selling bands in history. I mean, their greatest hits sold like 900 billion copies or something.
Yeah.
I mean, they sold copies on Mars, right? So, I mean, again, what did I know? But certainly, as time passed, I certainly learned to appreciate them more. I never liked them, I didn't have any Eagle CDs, but certainly I could respect. I had a great deal of respect for what they did. So a couple of years pass, several years pass, and it is sometime in 76. So I had been writing for Guitar Player for about 3 years at that point. I started writing December 73 with my first story. So I've been writing for a guitar player for a few years. And this is kind of a side story which will tie in, so be patient, people. Guitar player from time to time would send me this check for $25, and on it, it would say reprint, something like reprint for story in Player magazine. And, you know, I wondered what that was. I mean, I wasn't going to argue with 25 bucks. 25 bucks back in the day was cool. I mean, that was, yeah, that was a fair amount of money. And I never really questioned what it was. But then one day I remember, I think I asked Jim Crockett, the editor, I go, Jim, you know, what are these reprint checks you send? He said, well, we have a relationship with Player magazine, which is like a guitar magazine, the equivalent of Guitar Player in Japan, where they use stories from Guitar Player, and we give them reprint permission, and then they pay us. Then, oh, that's cool. I said, you know, could I get an issue? Could I see a copy? And I think one of the earlier ones I had done was, I think it was Paul Kossoff. That might have been somewhere around 76, something like that. And they sent me the issue. And my Kossoff story is on the cover. And I look through it, and it's all in Japanese, obviously. And I see, Steve Rosen. I go, oh, this is cool. And then the more I thought about it, I'm thinking, well, Guitar Player is taking my story that I've written for them. They're repurposing it to this Japanese magazine. Certainly, Japan is paying them more than $25 for the usage. I mean, you know, Guitar Player isn't giving me all of the money they're receiving. So I thought, you know, what's wrong with this picture? Then I thought, well, what if I contact Player and write for them directly? So I had the issue, and somehow the address, which is this way in a lot of Japanese magazines, was in English. So I contacted them and said, hi, this is Steve Rosen. And this is back in the days of letters. So I had to sit there and type out a letter. I said, hi, this is Steve Rosen, and I'm a writer from Guitar Player magazine, and you've reprinted several of my articles. Would you be interested if I wrote stories directly for you? And they wrote back and said, yes. So what happened was, because I was writing for Guitar Player, I mean, I had entree to a lot of guitar players. I've talked about it before. You know, Guitar Player back in the day was the Bible. Every guitar player wanted to be in Guitar Player. So, you know, I could make phone calls and line up interviews with, you know, just about anybody. So I was, you know, calling people and telling them I was from Guitar Player magazine and sending the stories to Japan. Well, I was also sending Japan the stories that I was writing for Guitar Player. And I remember Guitar Player writing me letters saying, what's this we hear that you've contacted Player and are, you know, writing for them and sending stories? You know, you can't do that. We own the rights to your stories, which they did not. I never signed any contract which gave them, you know, ownership of my stories. In fact, they only had one-time usage, and they honestly didn't even have the right to send my stories to Player without my permission. But that's another kettle of monkeys. So I said, well, you know, and I kind of danced and hemmed and hawed, and I did that several times. And Dogpod, that was my Jeff Beck book. The Beck book. I'm sorry, people. So I did that a few times, and I actually did it with the Don Felder story, and I'll get to that in a second, and I'm kind of backtracking here. So there's the Felder cover in Player. It's called Young Mates Music Player back then. And I don't know if you can read that. Sorry, everybody. You can see my name up there. I know it's blurry. So it's by Steve Rosen, but it doesn't say by permission of a guitar player or anything. So if we scroll through this book a little farther, Dan Fort was one of the editors. Well, here on the next pages are a Freddie King story, and I know you probably can't read this, but up at the top, sorry, it says, oh, sorry, everybody. It says, Guitar Player Magazine, Saratoga, California, reprinted with permission. So the editor, they were sending his stories over there with permission. And here's my Felder story that I'd sent there without permission, and the same story that appeared in Guitar Player Magazine. So I danced around that a lot, and I would get sort of, mean-sounding letters from Guitar Player. What turned out is I ended up writing for Player long after I stopped writing for Guitar Player in around 77, 78. And I actually wrote for Player for a total of 45 years. I mean, it was pretty extraordinary. I've never written for any magazine that long. And in fact, Player actually did a story on me at one point. That I had pictures of me, a lot of these pictures that Tony shows of me with all these guys, and they had all the pictures in there. And I wrote the story of how I got into writing and how I came to write for Player, et cetera, et cetera. So to get back to the interview with Felder, which is the first time I'd interviewed anybody from the Eagles. The Eagles were playing at a place called Red Rocks Amphitheater in, I think it was in Boulder. It was this natural outdoor amphitheater. It's this truly extraordinary place. And Guitar Player said, "Hey, man, do you want to go interview the Eagles or Don Felder in Colorado? They're staying at Caribou Ranch." And I go, "Hell yeah." Caribou Ranch was Jim Guercio's place. Jim Guercio was the manager for Chicago. And he had built this studio in Nederland, Colorado, combination studio living compound that was just not to be believed. I mean, there was these little private log cabins. And I mean, these log cabins were beautiful. They were rustic and beautiful, and it's set against the Rocky Mountains, and there's streams running through the place, and there's flora and fauna, and there are deer, and where the antelope play. I mean, it was something else. Certainly, it cost a shitload of money to stay there. And that's where the Eagles were staying while they were playing these shows at Red Rock. I don't think they were recording at all. I think they were just hanging out there. So everybody had his own cabin. And I remember it being so cold. I mean, for me, I could barely walk outside. And it was probably in the 30s. I mean, it's not like it was, bone chilling cold, but I couldn't breathe out there. And the air was so pristine. I remember that at night you could sleep and you could run your hand over these blankets, and the static electricity, you could see like the little electric bolts running through the threads in the blanket. I mean, it was almost like it was going to catch on fire. I mean, it never did, of course, but I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then the next morning, you could go into the kitchen. They had one building, where they serve food, and you could order anything you want. And I mean, everything was specially prepared. I mean, there were eggs and omelets and French toast and waffles and toast and jams and jellies and coffees and juices and fruits. And oh my God, it was something else. And I think I got there during the middle of the day. And so I don't think I actually interviewed Felder until the next day. or saw the show. It's a little hard to remember. But I remember going there in the morning, and I remember seeing kind of the eagles scattered around. And none of them, came over to say hello, introduce themselves. Hey, how you doing? Glad you're here. I mean, with the Eagles, it was the Eagles and then everybody else, and that I found that a little distasteful. I mean, they didn't have to roll out a red carpet, but they could have said hello, you know. I think when I landed at the airport, someone had, picked me up, and that was about it. So it might have been later that day after breakfast. I sat down with Felder and talked to him, and he was great. He was a very sweet guy, really good guitar player. Felder was always sort of the odd man out. I think Don came in a little after the fact. He wasn't in the original Eagles. It was always Glenn Frey and Don Henley's band. I mean, it was always their band. And I think he sensed a little bit of that. Later on, it would come to the point where he would, leave the band. He couldn't deal with them. I think there were some lawsuits that went back and forth. But at the time, I mean, obviously it was a great gig, and I'm sure he was real happy with it. So we talked guitars, and it was cool. And so I remember going to the gig. We got in, there was like a line of limos at the gates to the Caribou. And I got in, I'm pretty sure Felder was in there. I think it was just Felder. There might have been a couple other kind of, handlers or, hangers on, but I don't think any of the other Eagles were in there. And I remember he had a walkie-talkie. And he would talk to the guys in the car behind him. So, they're, bullshitting with each other. This long cavalcade of limos going to the gig. I just thought, it will never, I mean, if you're in a rock and roll band, it will never get any better than that. You're staying at one of the coolest places on the planet. You're playing in one of the most beautiful outdoor amphitheaters in the freaking country. You're selling records, man. You're making money. It's just like, that is the elite. And not many bands really reach that level. And I just thought, it was just such a powerful thing sitting in the back of this limo, and they're making cocktails, and, I had some kind of a gin tonic or something. And they might have been doing some blow, to be honest with you. I can't remember that for sure. It was just so cool. And the gig was pretty great. I met Irving Azoff, who's about a 5'3", nasty little man, to be honest with you. I mean, he's a really nasty guy. Ruled with an iron fist, but had a lot of success, but just not a very nice guy. And then, getting into the Eagles, getting into the limos on the way back, it's now dark, and, you can look behind you and see the lights of the limos, and, them talking on the walkie-talkies, and, I couldn't really hear a word that they were saying. But, I mean, it had to be about, hey, man, we played fucking great tonight. Or, hey, man, who's got the drugs? Or, hey, man, what's that girl's name? I mean, I don't know. You can imagine the conversations. But that was my first interview with an Eagle. So, yep.
And that Red Rock show was what year, Steve?
I don't know, man. I mean, the interview, I mean, I'm looking here. The date is 77 in players. So, I mean, I'm guessing for it to be 77. I mean, again, I don't know what year that was. I mean, this could have been I mean, I know it wasn't winter in Colorado because it would have been freezing snow on the ground. So, I mean, it could have been, early 77, somewhere around there, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard to remember. And then, again, I can't remember dates. I'd interview Walsh, uh, which would also become a cover for a guitar player. And he was a cool guy. Interviewed him in his offices, his management offices on overlooking Sunset Boulevard. And Joe was cool, funny guy. Um, you know, he talks like he sings. He's got like this nasal thing. He talks kind of like that. I mean, a really strange way that he spoke, but very cool guy.
You interviewed him in his management office. He wrote a song about his offices, gold records on the wall or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I can't place the song.
I got up.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
I can't be the title.
Anybody
That.
In the chat got the name of that song? Anyway, as you were saying, Steve.
Yeah, someone will come up. Yeah, man. Yeah. So there were gold records. I mean, his management it wasn't Irving Azoff. It was Elliot Roberts. I think.
Life's Been Good.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hellface. Yeah, man. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, and Elliot Roberts, the same place I interviewed Tom Petty. I think they interviewed Stevie. They represented Stevie Nicks. I mean, a lot of heavy people. And again, man, it was a cool moment. Here, Sunset Boulevard in management office, and the traffic is going down the Sunset Strip, and as a guitar player who would have given an arm to have been able to play in a band that was touring and making money and doing that kind of a thing. You just think how many guys would have died. I talked about the Eagles, but to be a Joe Walsh, to have a super heavy management company and management offices on Sunset Boulevard. You know what I mean, man? It's just that dream that just so few guys achieve. I mean, for every Joe Walsh in this world, there are 10,000 guys who, as close as they'll ever get to, the Sunset Strip is, walking down the street and going to 7-Eleven or something. You know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah, that was cool. So those are my two experiences up close and personal with the Eagles.
Nice.
Yep.
Our buddy Mike Neese in the chat sent me a couple of pictures of a guitar pick that he bought.
Oh, that's cool.
You, Steve.
I don't even remember that one. Do you have? Is there a back to that one?
Yeah, let me show it.
Oh yeah, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
While we're here, real quickly, Tony, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is. Did you know that they make the bands pay for the tables there?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Mick Jagger, you probably don't, or Paul McCartney, but they make you pay for the tables. I don't know, man. I've always found it a little distasteful. The people who nominate on the nominating board, man, I doubt if any of them have ever played a guitar, have ever written a song. I mean, these are smart people, but they're managers and I don't know, man. And a lot of bands that should have been in years ago are never in. And in the pursuit of being hip, they've nominated a bunch of bands that in 1,000 years don't deserve it. In my mind, man, you're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You need to have had a profound influence on the development and sound of rock and roll. And a lot of these bands haven't. I mean, they're good bands, I mean, they may sell records, but that's not the arbiter of anything.
Should be though.
So anyway,
A lot of these inductees, most inductees have issues with the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rightfully so, you know.
yeah,
That
well, it's yeah. Go ahead, Tony.
yeah,
Yeah, it just without tooting my own horn, because I really don't do that, but a friend of mine, Cindy Landine, had started, and we've probably talked about it before here.
let's talk
Called
about this. I wanted to turn the corner. We've all heard of Rock God's honors, Rock God's Hall of Fame. Steve is one of the creators, and in its early going, and it recognizes a lot of artists. I'll let you tell them, Steve. Yeah,
Well, yeah, man,
please.
that's it. Again, this is Cindy Landine's vision. This has been going on. God, I want to say. In fact, I'll tell you, I can't see it. 2014 was the first year. Um, uh, Cindy loved rock and roll, and she had a vision of, instead of celebrating, you know, Bon Jovi and the Stones and U2 and Aerosmith and Eric Clapton, why not celebrate those guys, who just tend to fly underneath the radar? Um, the rhythm guitar player in Aerosmith. I mean, unless you're an Aerosmith fan, I mean, do you even know his name? I mean, Brad Whitford. I mean, the bass player, or producers, or session guitar players, or artists that just have never made that transition into being, truly household names. And so that was her vision. And Cindy put this together. She asked me to kind of come on board, and I talked to some people, and that's kind of what the Rock God's Hall of Fame is. I mean, um, it's really just kind of celebrating these artists who have been so important in the development of not only their own bands, but um, the arc of rock and roll. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a totally legit organization. I mean, it was going pretty well. I mean, I think we had done 4 or 5 inductions. We had another one scheduled coming up, I think, in September, October, which obviously isn't happening. So, once this, freaking virus hit, everything was put on hold. But, I mean, the Rock God's Hall of Fame, I mean, it really is cool. I mean, and the guys that we induct really seem to appreciate that. They recognize, that they're really being honored by true fans. And beyond that, previous inductees nominate the inductees to come. So
Give us some examples of those inductees, Steve.
man, it's so hard for me to remember. If somebody could go to rockgodshallofame.com, you can see. But I mean, there have been
I remember you mentioned Michael Anthony of Van Halen, Steve
Michael
Vai.
Anthony, Steve Vai, Doug Aldrich, Steve Lukather, Um, oh man, a bunch of heavy producers. Tim Pierce, one of the greatest session guitar players in the world. Um, uh, Frankie Benali, who sadly just passed away. Gary Hoey, uh, Elliot Easton from the Cars. Um, uh, uh, Lita Ford. Oh man, I mean, there must be 60 or 70, 80 inductees now. I mean, some heavy producers. Uh, yeah, and so the fact that previous inductees, uh, uh, vote on the guys to be inducted that come after them. I mean, I think that's totally legit, right? There's nothing fair than being judged by your peers. So yeah, and I'm sure that things will start up again once this Corona
Who
thing
who
goes
are
away.
those inductees coming up this year?
I honestly, I cannot remember. Again, I mean, if you can pull it up, Rock God's Hall of Fame, or if somebody can, I mean, you'll see. I'm not. In fact, I don't even know if the nominees were named for this year. Oh, Skid Row guitar player Snake.
Yeah,
Um, uh, oh man, I mean some remarkable guitar players. Lee Sklar, the guy with the long beard, plays with everybody. Played behind Linda
James Taylor.
Ronstadt and James Taylor, Mike Landau. Um, yeah.
Genesis.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
When I
So
look at the Eagles, Steve, um, my whole life, and I'm a little younger than you, we all know songs off of every single Eagles album. I mean, from the early Take It Easy, Already Gone, Best of My Love, on into Hotel California, long. We all know all those songs. And although the Eagles may not be the heavier guitar based rock that a lot of us do like, those you can't deny that those songs in their career are a part of our culture. Um, we know
yeah, no,
all those
absolutely.
songs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I mean, I made that confession early in my narrative. I mean, they're amazing songwriters. And I must admit, Henley's lyrics on Hotel California are truly spectacular lyrics. I mean, what he does is, it's just really good. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. I mean, there were a few bands like that. I mean, Steely Dan, who they have a ton of songs, and those are remarkable players. But there was just something about Steely Dan that I always respected more than I liked. So yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. Uh, Somebody had just flashed. Lenny Lou, I think, just flashed. Yeah, yeah. There was actually going to be a Rock God's induction in Princess from Minneapolis, Paisley Park.
Oh, really?
But
Yeah.
there was going to, oh, I think, but there was going to be, yeah, an induction back there with all of his, all of the guys that he had played with. And that had to be called off because of the COVID thing. In fact, I think Cindy lives in Minneapolis. But yeah, that was going to happen. Um, yeah, it was a shame. But yeah, no, I mean, they are consummate songwriters and singers. and arrangers, and Henley is not the world's greatest drummer, but I mean it doesn't matter. I mean he could be banging on tin cans, playing those songs. But just something about them I never cared for. But yeah, I get it. I mean, they are part of, um, people consider them a California band, which I mean, for the most part, they were, even though they're not originally from here. Some of the guys might be. I think they're an Arizona band, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, their songs, which is why their greatest hits, like I said, sold 900 trillion copies. I mean, I think every person in the world has a copy of that record
I
except
know.
me. So yeah,
It's interesting to me that the Eagles came about. Those now, I guess, minus Joe Walsh came a couple of years after the Eagles formed, but the
yeah,
Eagles, Hanley, and those guys were the backing band for Linda Ronstadt.
that's right.
Um,
They they were they were. In fact, I think they even did a gig at the Troubadour. I think the Troubadour uh, was, in fact, I think it was just sold, which is a sad, sad thing. The Troubadour was like the Troubadour was like down was south of the Strip. So up on the Strip, you had the whiskey, and before that, all those clubs, Pandora's Box, and back in the '60s and stuff. But Gazzari's was up on the Strip, um, the Roxy. So you had kind of all the real kind of heavier stuff going on the Strip. And then the Troubadour would host bands, and they'd have electric bands, but the Troubadour was more, um, yeah, Linda Ronstadt. My God, I saw Steve Martin there, before he was an actor, doing his banjo with the arrow through his head. Cheech and
mm,
Chong I saw there, but all those acoustic guys, Jackson Brown, um, Elton John played his first gigs there. Um, but yeah, before I was writing, I think before the Eagles actually backed Linda at the Troubadour. Um, and somebody heard the Eagles and thought, oh my God, look at those guys play and listen to them doing backup harmonies,
yeah.
let's get them. And yeah, I mean, very talented guys. Um, you know, uh,
You say, Steve, that
yeah,
the Troubadour has been sold now?
that's what somebody told me. And I don't know if it's going to remain the Troubadour, or, I mean, it's in a very, high profile location down on Sunset Boulevard,
Yeah.
right by Doheny. Doheny is a very kind of a high end street, North and South Street. Santa Monica is an east-west street, like Sunset Boulevard is. And
Who
yeah,
was
somebody
the
said it was
owner of
just
that
sold.
place? Doug Wetton?
Doug Weston.
Weston. Okay.
Yeah, and Doug's thing was you'd come and play for him when you were kind of nobody, but you sign a contract that said you'll come back and play 5 more times. So, who's not going to sign that? I mean, if you're struggling to get a gig, you'll sign anything. So that's how he was able to get, well, Elton specifically. Elton played there, his first time in America. I mean, nobody really knew him. And Elton blew up almost immediately. And then, he came back. By the time he came back, I mean, he was already a big star. Not a superstar like he would become, but he was pretty freaking huge. And I think it happened with a lot of those guys. Uh, James Taylor played there. Um, God, all those guys, all those bands.
Yeah.
Poco. Um,
Very
yeah, it
historic
was
club there
oh man, it was an amazing place.
in
Actually,
West
I was in a
Hollywood.
band. Yeah, man. I actually played there. We played there once. I was in a band called Monarch, and I was so fucking terrified, man. Oh God. I'd like to say that we played great, but we probably didn't. You know, it's one thing to sit there and practice in a garage with your buddies and do that thing, man. It is a completely different animal getting on stage. You know, in any club, much less the Troubadour. I'm
Well,
thinking,
you
holy
played
fuck.
there. I mean, goodness, that's
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was something. It was something. But I'm thinking, my God, man, I'm standing in the same spot where, you know, Glenn Frey stood and, you know, all those great guitar players. It's like, what the fuck? So,
let me ask you this, Steve. You're a West Coast guy. Now, those historic rock clubs in Hollywood, there's the Whiskey, Troubadour, the um, Gazzari's, Bill Gazzari's. Um, he's not alive
yeah,
anymore, I don't think.
no, and Gazzari's is long gone.
Yeah. Now, which of those clubs has the it's a dressing room or a bathroom where everybody's autograph is all over the walls?
The Whiskey,
The Whiskey. Okay.
the dressing room. I was up there a few times and it was covered. Um, the Whiskey always seemed pretty aware of its own heritage, even though they went through different phases. You know, I mean, I was going to the Whiskey when I was writing for my high school paper. I had a little entertainment column. You know, so in '71, I was going to the Whiskey. I saw, oh God, 71, 72, 73, but very early. I mean, I saw the Beach Boys. I saw Humble Pie with Frampton. It was one of the greatest things I'd ever seen. Um, uh, the Allman Brothers with Dwayne. Oh my God. Um, but yeah, the upstairs dressing rooms, the walls are covered in signatures. So hopefully somebody is, you know, preserving that somehow or covering it. Doubtful what they're doing that. Hopefully, you know, there's pictures taken of it, so at least it exists somewhere. Um, I remember the first time I met Van Halen was at the Whiskey. The girl that used to book the bands there was a girl named Michelle Meyer. Michelle Meyer knew every band. She was one of the sweetest people I'd ever met. And she was really helpful to me. She helped actually get my band. There was a couple of clubs called Madam, excuse me, Madam Wong's West,
Yeah.
Madam Wong's
Right.
East.
Yeah.
And she used to book those. So she booked my band in. I mean, oh God, God bless her. Um, uh, but I remember I was there one night to see Monarch. It was Michael Monarch's band. Michael was the guitar player from Steppenwolf, big Jeff Beck guy. And, you know, she knew I was into guitar players and wrote for Guitar Mags. She says, hey, man, you know, Eddie Van Halen is here. You got to meet Eddie. And her word for greatness was Godhead. You know, he's Godhead. You know, Eddie is Godhead. I go, yeah. So I remember meeting Eddie and she introduced us.
What
And
year is this? This was
before the first
before you.
record,
This was before you interviewed them.
no,
Day on the
I'd
Green.
never met him.
Oh,
No,
okay.
way before that. Well, I don't know if it was way before. I always think that Day on the Green was the first time I met Ed, but it was the second time.
Yeah.
This was the first time. Um, yeah, so it was before the first record. So this could have been, I don't know, man. When did they actually get signed in '78? I'm not sure. This could have been late '77, early '78.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, they were signed, but the record hadn't come out. So anyway, he says, hey, man, it's too loud. Michael Monarch was playing. So let's go upstairs. So obviously Eddie had been up there 1,000 times playing with the band. And the funny thing is, I had never seen Van Halen play at the Whiskey. I have no idea why. I mean, I was there all the time. I mean, I was at the Whiskey 3 times a week seeing bands, and I never saw Van Halen. So I just knew that this was this guy, Eddie Van Halen. I'd heard of Van Halen, and I knew he played guitar. So we're talking, and I just remember looking at the walls, tying this whole story and looking at the walls and seeing all those signatures up there. And, him talking about, yeah, man, we got signed and, we think the first record's going to be good. We're hoping. And I mean, this guy was the most unassuming, self-effacing person you could ever want to meet, And I remember him talking about Michael Monarch, who had a big Jeff Beck thing going. And I remember Ed commenting on that. And I thought, well, just the fact that Ed recognized that Michael Monarch had this Jeff Beck thing going on, because not a lot of people would. I thought, yeah, this guy is probably cool, man. He knows his guitar players. So we just talked about everybody, talked about Cream and, this and that. And anyway, that was special, and those walls are kind of etched into my mind, me standing there with Ed, and, the walls covered with signatures and stuff behind him. So,
yeah.
That was a good one. Yeah.
So, Steve, I want to ask you this, and I'm going to show these Eagles guitar picks over here. So once the Eagles broke up and got back together, what was your take on, I guess they called it the Hell Freezes Over tour?
Yeah, and you know where that saying comes from, right? That
Where?
was Henley or Fry saying, about Henley and or Fry saying about Don Felder, yeah, we'll get back together when hell freezes over. So, so they named the tour that, sell 16 trillion tickets, again, it wasn't much of a blip on my radar when they got back together. But for them, it was a huge payday. I guess it was shortly after that Felder left, and lawsuits went back and forth, and Felder was claiming, I don't know, man, some kind of songwriter stuff. I think it was, or they owed him money or this and that. But, I did a second interview with him, and there was a movie, a documentary that came out on the Eagles. I forget what it was called. And I thought it was pretty accurate, and Felder didn't think so. He didn't think it was accurate at all. So I think at the end of the day, he probably had kind of a nasty taste in his mouth about that whole thing. But
why is that? Why didn't he like it?
Because you had to deal with Don Henley and Glenn Frey. And like I said, it was their band. And I can't imagine it was easy working with those guys. They were writing all the songs, they were doing all the vocals and stuff. So, yeah, they just didn't get along.
Well, I remember how expensive those seats were when they went on tour.
Yeah.
And I didn't go. I mean, it was outrageous. Yeah, a couple $100 way, way in the back. And that's been a little while ago, 8-10 years ago, however long it's been now. But yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I mean, concert tickets have been insane for, I don't know, man, 20 years, longer. It's a sad thing. You talk to the bands, and the bands always say, well, it's my it's the promoter who makes us charge that much. And the promoter says, well, it's the manager. Or, the guy says, well, man, you got to fill the thing and you got to make money and, you got to pay for this. It's like, hey, I get that it's a business, Nobody wants the Eagles to play for free. They're not going to play for free. But yeah, to charge that kind of money, I don't know.
Steve,
I mean, I guess I'm sorry, Tony. It's the same thing as saying, some baseball player deserve, $180 million a year or whatever. I guess if people are willing to pay it, then that's what you're going to do. Are you going to say no to the money? I don't know. I just think there's a better way around it,
They did monster business that tour, though. You can't argue with that.
No, man, that's the thing. If people are going to pay it, then they're going to keep charging it, which is why the concert industry, beyond the COVID thing, has all just about died. I mean, there's a few bands that can go out and make money, so I don't know, man. Was everything better back in the day?
We have a question
all
here,
I know
Steve.
No, I never met Glenn. I did see him in the, the galley, that breakfast building that day. And, I mean, there's a part of me that maybe wanted to walk over to him. I think he was sitting with Henley, or maybe he was sitting by himself. But I just kind of remember looking at him thinking, this guy is a mean fuck. I mean, he doesn't want to be bothered in the morning. So it's like, no, I never said hello, never met him. About as close as I got to him was, watching him play on stage. But yeah, I mean, somebody had brought up the Cal Jam show when the Eagles were on early that day. I was there at that show, and yeah, I mean, I think the Cal Jam tickets. I mean, I don't know what they were, but I'll bet you the tickets for I don't know, there was like 11 big bands that day. I'll bet you the Cal Jam tickets, and this is like 74. So I bet they weren't. I don't know, man. I can't imagine they were more than 40 or 50 bucks. I mean, I'm guessing. No way were they a couple $100 in any event. But that's just me ranting,
So Steve, let's give away this nice Glenn Frey Eagles guitar pick. What do you say?
Sounds good, man.
All right. Before we do that, if anybody wants a shirt or a hat, the links are in the description and in the chat. They're available most sizes. Yep. All right. So. Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry, Tony. I didn't mean to interrupt you, man.
No,
I meant to tell you, I wore your Fruitcake Tony T-shirt to the. I did wear it to the that pick convention.
Oh, cool!
If you go online, I think you type in pick convention or something like that. You'll see it. There's a couple of group shots, and so you'll see me. Wearing your.
Shirt. I'll check it out for sure. Cool. All right, kids. This question is about the Eagles, and again, up for grabs is this. All right. So the question is a two-part question. I need both the parts in their proper order. Okay. Shouldn't be hard, but they do have to be in order. If you get both the parts right and they're not in order, that's a so they have to be in order. So, all right. So if everyone's ready, we're going to show this now. Two of the Eagles albums, Blank and Blank, ranked first and third, respectively, in the best-selling albums of all time in the United States. Name the first, then name the third. All righty. I think we have a winner. We have a winner. No, I hit the wrong one. We have a winner here.
But they both
Gosh,
came in at the same time.
the chat's flying. I hit the wrong one again. All right, so there is the first one. Its greatest hits is first, and Hotel California is third. Howface, congratulations. You are the winner. All right, so let's.
But how come it says Bent Tom is also at 211? Are we talking microseconds here, Tony, or what? You know what I mean?
Let me go to the. I don't think Bent Tom in his initial one had both parts.
Yeah, he does.
All right, let me go to the chat here. Bear with me here.
Wow, Sandra says microseconds count. Nanoseconds? Okay. Well, Ben Tom is even acknowledging that Howface was first, so it's very generous.
Okay, so I see Howface greatest hit. Bent Tom was right behind him. You are correct. Um, it if I had multiples of this stuff, you know, I would share the love, but I do not have multiples. So Howface is our winner. Um, and Howface, I still think I have your address from when you won a few weeks ago. I will mail you this guitar pick out Monday morning. Appreciate you being here and watching. I appreciate all of you being here and watching. Those that come each week. It means a lot. This is a young show and a young channel. We're trying to get going, so we appreciate the support. Yes, very, very much so. And Steve, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you, my man, on the weekend hour. I could listen to you talk for hours and hours. I know a lot of us here could also. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Hope everybody out there is digging it, and I appreciate you guys coming back for seconds. Thank you.
Yeah. So let me one more time here. Let me show a couple of things. Steve sells guitar picks on eBay. The links are in the description and in the chat. He's got a lot of cool stuff. Your backstage pass stuff is all gone now, Steve. Got any left?
That's a good story. I'll be real quick. Probably about a month ago now, I got a collection of. There was probably, obviously I never counted them. There's probably 120,000 backstage passes. I mean, it was insane. I started putting them up, and realized, I mean, I couldn't sell that many passes if I lived to be 150. So I actually looked around to see if I could sell the collection, and I actually ended up selling the entire collection. One guy bought about 95% of it, and I just sold about the last 10,000 passes to another guy who had these big collectible stores. And yeah, so I probably got, I don't know, a couple hundred passes left. And that's about it. But yeah, all gone.
Yeah. Now Steve buys guitar pick collections of any size, and his email information is always available. If you have a collection, big or small, of stuff you want to sell, keep that in mind.
And I don't mean to interrupt, Tony. If any
And
of you guys know of people selling collections, and one of your referrals turns into me buying something, I will happily pay you guys a commission for that, gladly. So
there you go.
go snoop out some guitar pick collections, people.
Yep. And that's all memorabilia, not just the guitar picks. If it's
Yeah, man.
music
Yeah,
stuff, yeah.
yep.
Um,
T-shirts. Yeah, guitars. Yeah, I mean, guys. Yeah, definitely.
all right. So at this time, I want to bring in um, our co-producer here at Show Me Your Pick. She is the chief moderator. She guards the gate. She is the glue. She makes it all happen. She signs the paychecks. No, she doesn't sign paychecks. Will you, though? I'm kidding. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only, the lovely Sandra Pokorney. There she is.
Hey.
Hi guys. Hi Chad. Hi everybody. Go to them
How you
links,
doing?
click them, you get more cool content just like this. Who's next week?
Who is next week? I'll let you tell them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're getting a sneak peek of next week right now.
Leonard Skinner and all that Southern rock. It's going to be a great show. Make sure you're tuned in 4 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at Show Me Your Pick with Fruitcake Tony and the legendary rock journalist Steve Rosen.
Awesome. Leonard Skinner, we're going to do the whole genre, all Southern rock. So there'll be Skinner, 38 Special, the Allman Brothers, Blackfoot, Marshall Tucker. I'm leaving a bunch of people out, but yeah, a lot of cool stories.
Cool.
I got a lot of guitar picks of all these artists, backstage passes, signed stuff, historic stuff also in the way of Skinner. We all love Skinner. All right. All of us do. So, yeah.
Hey, Guitar Hack.
Definitely.
Homer
All
Brody, all the best. Clap. Hi, everybody.
I'm just
All
shifting
right.
gears for 1 second, Tony.
Sure,
Somebody
sure.
had asked me if I'd ever met Sam Cutler. To be honest, I'm not sure who that is.
Lars Guitars. Hello.
Lars Guitars, welcome.
Mike Nees.
Who's good?
Let's see who asked
Who's
you
it?
that, Steve.
It's a ways up there. I can't find it.
Hitman Dwight Bailey. Hello.
Oh, Clive 54. I don't know who Sam Cutler is. I mean, maybe I'm showing my stupidity. I've certainly never spoken to that person. Sam Cutler.
Who is
Anybody know
Sam,
who that is?
Clive? Let's see if he responds here.
In the meantime, let's get those thumbs up, shall we?
Yes, thank you for that. And subscribe if you're not already.
Oh, Molly Hatchet. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
He's got guitar player for Molly Hatchet. I mean, that's what somebody wrote. If it is, no, I never did. I did interview. I think Molly has like 3 guitar players. I think I did interview some
never
guitar
heard
players.
that
Molly
name.
Hatchet.
Yeah, I've never heard that name as a Molly Hatchet member. I could be wrong. They've had members later on as of recent. Their last original member has just passed away recently, Steve Holland. But I don't recognize that name at all.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Hack says Molly Hatchet. Is that a Molly Hatchet guy? Hack?
Winnie Lou.
Another trivia question.
Oh, I thought it was somebody.
Cutler was the tour manager for the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
I mean, that's a pretty specific guy. No, I never did. I never interviewed him.
Yeah, that's wow, Hack.
All right. So everybody, what time is it? It is 5:30. You got about an hour and a half to go get you a nice bite to eat, and then you can come back here on YouTube and watch the communication breakdown. And she has a fantastic guest on her show, her and Gary, Big G, the big guy. Love Big G.
Big G.
So why don't you tell us who's going to be on your show? Oh, my Lord. Oh, my gosh. Gosh, you got to watch the show.
We got the big guns himself, Kane Roberts, will be joining us for a conversation of all things Kane Roberts.
Nice.
That's going to be good.
Super excited.
I'm excited. That's
say,
going to be a good one.
You say hi to Gary for me, okay?
I will. And Lenny, I did not have an edible today.
Oh, Lord. All right. So.
Real, Tony, I'm sorry. Real quick, Sandra.
Yes.
I told my brother I was on your show, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks. 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Time flies.
It does.
And that you guys were asking me questions about Stubby and Hal, Mick, and Jerry. My brother freaked out. He could appreciate that like I did. So that was very cool.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Very cool.
Like to have you back on anytime you want, Steve. TK, you guys are always welcome.
Thank you.
And for those listening here don't know what we're talking to, I was on Sandra's show 2 weeks ago, and they had found stuff about me I didn't even know about myself. Seriously, they asked about my dog that I had when I was, 10 years old, and they asked about my parents and my brother, which I have never been asked about before. In 50 years of doing interviews, no one has ever asked me about my dog or my parents. So
wow.
That was a cool one.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Everybody,
so,
everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Wear your mask and wash your hands. Nice to see you. Hope to see you guys back here next week at this same time. We're going to take you on a little trip down south for some Southern rock.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right, you guys hang out, and we will see everybody next week. See ya.